Welcome to another episode of Create or Die. This is your host, Ike Allred. Today, my friends, is a good day. We've hit episode number 10, double digits. That's right. Today is a day for celebration, and to celebrate, we've got a good one for you. Today we dig into the wonderful world of video. That's right, motion pictures. From film to digital camcorders to cinema mode cameras in your pockets in the form of a smartphone. Come on. Gone are the days of prohibitively expensive camera equipment, Avid bays, and super beefy computers that are out of reach to the average prosumer. Today, the average laptop, tablet, or even your smartphone can handle the majority of your editing needs. I'm excited to welcome my friend and colleague who comes to us with over a decade of experience working in video, from Disney sitcoms, music videos, and short films to in-house production of commercial spots, documentaries, and viral social videos. Dan Erbus has done it all. Join me as I get the definitive scoop on Dan's origin story and get straight up nerdy as we talk about the ins and outs of the video production process, from pre-production to post. Everybody's favorite, right? We can fix it in post. It'll only take forever. But an added bonus is that my boy Dan, he shares a list of his go-to tools / software. Some I hadn't even heard of. So let's get to it. Well, awesome, Dan. It's been a long time that I've been wanting to get you on the podcast. You're here for the number 10, episode number 10. So that's something, double digits.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, excited to get someone on here with your skill set and dig in a little bit more on that. And it's crazy. We've known each other for nearly 5 years now, and I've learned a lot from you and enjoyed working with you for the majority of that time period. And just curious, how you got into this video thing in the first place. Did you know from a young age, like, hey, I want to make movies? Or
No, great question. But yeah, just kind of really quick. Yeah, I've known you for a few years now. We work great together. We've been able to do a lot of fun projects, so that's always been exciting. So as far as how I got into this, I don't know, man. I think my origin story kind of just goes back a little bit at high school. In high school, me and my friends, I used to wrestle in high school.
yeah.
And as part of that, I had this, this this idea of just having fun with my friends. So we would do backyard wrestling. So with me and my buddies from high school, and I had my dad's old camera recorder, so we would do backyard wrestling.
So similar to like the WWE style of wrestling, hitting people with chairs and
yeah, we would watch wrestling, and we get into these characters, and it was just fun. And I think one of our friends got hurt and kind of that stopped, but we would hit each other with chairs and try to mimic as close to safety, but as close to the moves that you would see on some of these events. So that's kind of where it got started, and I had fun doing that. And then after that, I came back from serving my LDS mission. If you're not familiar, most people in Utah are familiar, but for those who aren't in Utah, if you're LDS, you have the opportunity to serve a mission, and I did, and came back from there, and was going to school at Utah Valley University, and was trying to figure out, what do I need to do? What should I do? And I was leaning really hard and studying law and getting what I need there to move on to a different college and figure out law. But yeah, man, it just didn't sit well with me. It was just I just cannot. I couldn't handle like from what I was learning and seeing. I was like, man, I'm gonna regret this 10 years
Yeah.
down the line if I continue this. So I decided to go into a more creative field and kind of look back at what I enjoy doing, and from a little bit of a self-reflection and investigating of who I am and what I want to do, I came down to wanting to be creative in the video field. So, and that was kind of my origin story. And then from there, uh, I started studying that at the Utah Valley University, enrolled in the digital media program with the emphasis in film, and started learning left and right everything I could from there. Um, During my years going to UVU, I had some obstacles that almost halted me from continuing my education. One of those was at that time, I'm originally from Bolivia, South America,
Yeah.
and I was born there and I came here when I was very young. But at that time, I wasn't fully a citizen yet. I
Mm.
graduated high school here in Utah, but they were charging me non-resident tuition at Utah Valley
Oh,
University, even though I graduated high school. So that was one of my biggest obstacles, because you can imagine the price difference, right, from non-resident to resident.
sure.
And that's kind of where I had to make some big decisions and decided to, a little bit go in debt to continue pursuing this passion. And then from there was able to finally get a scholarship and being able to figure that out. Otherwise, most people would have given up and not continued the education. I
Yeah.
don't know where I would be if it didn't come to that point of being like, okay, I know school's gonna help me. I want to do this. I gotta bite the bullet as much as it hurts, just
Mm.
so I can continue my education. So that was my biggest obstacle for that. And a little bit after that, I was able to get a student working position at BYU Broadcasting.
All right.
Even though I went to school at Utah Valley University, I
Mm-hmm.
got hired at BYU Broadcasting in their international channel, and I started just diving into editing their shows. Since I know Spanish and understand Portuguese as well, I
Mm-hmm.
started editing things in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, their
Okay.
shows, and that kind of sparked had the my initial career into that. I did that a number of years with BYU Broadcasting. Even after graduation, I worked with them for a little bit, and then after that, I kind of I got hired at a marketing agency called Lime Marketing. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever heard of it, but it was pretty big back in 2010. The owner was Dog the Bounty Hunter's son, or illegitimate son, but it was a good company. And
Yeah.
then unfortunately it got run down due to some bad choices, but ended up working in other careers related to my field. So that was kind of my origin story. And from there, yeah, I met you at MX,
Yeah.
and shortly a few months ago left MX, right? And now I'm working at a different place. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's cool to hear that story. I've heard pieces of it. I didn't know that you had those hurdles to get over with school, and but you pushed through it and are the better for it, I'm sure. And this may be a little off course, but I know you spent a little bit of time in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Did
yeah.
that relate to video at all, or
No, so yeah, that's a good question, because right after I came back from serving my LDS mission, my brothers live in the Bay Area. They live in Palo Alto, and I ended up moving to Palo Alto for about 2 years. And when I moved there, me pursuing video wasn't a choice
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
I moved there just to see, because they had success down there. They're doing great, and I was like, okay, well, I got to go down there. Um, and I went down there with tech mind, with a mind of like being an entrepreneur, and I, even though I still have that spirit, I
yeah,
was able to, with my buddy, to create a startup. Well, it was called Dirigo,
yeah.
with my friend John. And what it means, and I believe in Italian, it means I direct. And
Okay.
what the idea was um, to get GPS, like your garments and stuff like that, to be able to add coupon related type information or data into your GPS systems. So, oh, I want to go eat something. Here's a coupon for this place close by. and this was way back, way back before the iPhone and the
Yeah.
apps or even Groupon. And we pitched it to a few investors at that time, and they were going to give us 100 grand to be able to kind of get this going, and
Yeah.
that ended up going downhill just because it didn't follow through, and it kind of, you know, living in Palo Alto is
Oh
expensive,
yeah.
um, and I started working at EA Electronics as a video game tester in
Awesome.
Redwood City for like a year. You
Yeah.
know, they make that job seem really fun, but it's not.
No, I bet.
It's really it's really tiring when you just play one game for a whole 6 months and have to write all this information about it. I don't know how things are now and then, but
Yeah.
yeah. After that, I ended up moving back to Utah due to some other family things. I ended up, helping my mom out, and
Right.
she was getting over an accident, and so I started just taking care of her, and then I'm going to school, and that's when the choice to create video and be a video creative started. So
Yeah, I do. I must say, I do enjoy envisioning you as a lawyer, maybe in the courtroom, intimidating the jury to to side with your client or something. But that's awesome. No, and that entrepreneurial spirit of yours didn't die there. You, I know, at some point in this mix had started Airbus Films on the side, your personal company, and you want to talk a little bit more about that?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't know if you're like this. I might be the only one like this, but I always have something, turning them in my head, and it annoys
I'm
my
with
wife
you.
because
Yeah,
I get ideas not just about creating video content or good ideas, but about just like little side hustles that I've been doing. And
yeah,
um, so yeah, as far as Airbus Films, it's spelled Airbus like the company Airbus, but I just put films. And the reason I called it Airbus Films is my last name is Herbas.
yeah,
Not a lot of people can say my last name because it's spelled Herbas.
yeah.
They say Herbis, or they make fun of it sometimes. Okay, I can go into so many stories, but
Right.
and I've been doing freelance here and there between, my full time gigs or not as much now since I got a new job, but yeah, it's been fun because there's a lot of fun projects that come from there. So
No, but I appreciate that, and inadvertently, you've introduced me to little side hustle ideas, like with regards to T-shirts and having those direct to consumer sent. Something that you know I've started to do as part of this Create or Die brand, and so yeah, I've always appreciated that about you.
you're saying I inspired you into that part of it?
Definitely,
That's
definitely,
cool, man. That's
yeah.
good. That's good to hear. I did something positive.
So many things. I'm sure we'll come up with a couple of others as we go through this interview. But so yeah, so you made the switch from uh, Airbus attorney at law to the video field and creative field. Do you have a favorite part of the video production process?
Yeah, man. I love everything about video, but there's definitely specific things that I I gravitate towards too than others. And some of that is just the production, the actual production day, like the day where you're actually either shooting something you've been planning for weeks, months, and getting to the day where you have this limited time to be creative and shoot and use the equipment and make sure you get it done. I
Yeah.
would say it's a toss up for me between that and post production,
Okay.
because in post production you just put it together, right? You're a creative in a different way. It's sometimes I think of myself as this kind of mad scientist putting all these formulas, mixing them together to
Yeah.
see what works. And that's how it is for me for post production, is mixing all the video and music and sound effects and making a story out of it, or making it a compelling video for whatever it is you're working on. So it's a toss up for me for production, post production.
Yeah.
Um, so I find a lot of um, entertainment and a lot of creativity in both. Now, I don't want to leave pre-production alone, because that's also a very, very important part of the project. Because without that, nothing can go through the way you want it to, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it's still a necessity, and I just definitely find production, actually the day of shooting, the day of creating,
Yeah.
and the putting it together, that I find more.
More
appealing.
enjoyable. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you have to pick an order there, and it sounds like pre-production's a close third there. And I agree. It is. I can see how the day of shooting can be a lot of fun, especially someone with sports background like yourself. It's kind of like this is game day. We're here.
Right.
Things are gonna happen live. We've got to learn how to deal with it. Um, and and you have a great presence, and I've watched you on several of these shoots where you've been able to talk to people, direct them. You know, at our previous place where we worked together, MX, dealing with executives or people that are, almost celebrities in their own right in that industry. Uh, is that something that's always just kind of come natural for you, or is that a skill you've had to work on?
Um, I think in the beginning, it's always a skill you got to work on, and hopefully become something more natural because that's what you're pursuing. I remember the first time I did something like that where um, I was asked to be part of a short film where there was real money going into it,
Yeah.
and they asked me to be the first assistant director. I never done anything like that at this point, so this was my big step um, into helping with this big project. So I took what I knew, I took the advice from others, and I just bumped up the notch a few notches more
Yeah.
here and there, and just became um, more passionate about this. And there was some points where people were like, "Oh man, you're kind of intense." I'm like, yeah, sorry if I am. I'm trying to make sure I don't fail at this role. So I'm making sure as a first AD or first assistant director, you want to make sure things are flown. You're calling out, making people are on time, or that you're not doing something. I mean, you're also part of safety.
Yeah.
I remember one time in this specific shoot that we're putting a camera on a crane, and we had it all set up, ready to go for the shoot. We did the shoot, we got the shots, and now the team in charge of putting it away was taken off, and they're in, and they did it wrong. They took the
Oh.
camera off before taking the weight,
Uh,
and if I would have been there, I would have called it out. But what ended up happening, they got the camera out, but then what the jib or crane did is a smaller, 10-foot jib ended up doing a flip because of the other weight and ended up crashing hard to the ground.
oh.
If somebody would have been standing there, that person would have been hurt seriously.
Yeah. Yes.
So when that happened, I kind of just, had to bump up the volume and make sure I go over safety and go over things that needed to be done so it doesn't happen again. So you have to do it in a way that you're respectful, but at the same time, they know you're serious, and then
Yeah.
things like this can't happen in sets like this, because an accident like that and a small shoot like this would have ended um, the
The production.
production,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So things like that you have to be aware of, and throughout my experience and things like this of doing things like this in different shoots, I've been able to dial it in and been able to polish the way I do things, and all this. Every shoot you do is a good opportunity to learn and good opportunity to get more experience. So
Yeah. No, I like that, and I something you might not think about. Hey, we're just filming this small little shoot. What could go wrong as far as from a safety standpoint? But that's cool. I mean, yeah, it's cool to hear how you've had to learn all of that. So back to your second favorite part of the video production process, the editing, the post production. I'm curious, and I would imagine our listeners will be curious to kind of know, how do you start? You've got that blank timeline, you've got all of this footage. What is your process? Do you start blocking things out, throwing things in there? You carefully go through all of your footage, or have you put some of that together in your mind? What's your process?
no, for sure. I think that process starts a little bit more also during the production, just
Mhm.
because of the way your workflow is with the cameras and the way your workflow goes helps your process in post production. For me, is if once we get all the footage, I'm pretty hardcore into making sure my folder system is on par,
Mhm.
and I've been able to set up a good system for myself for my shoots, that I know where things are, I know how things flow, and as long as all that is set, I know where footage for which cameras, camera A, camera B, sound,
Mm.
is set in their appropriate folders. I'm able to comfortably go in and start being creative and edit, right? Based on if there's a script or not. So once that's set, I move on to okay, put the gloves on, right? Let's put the music on. Let's make
Yeah.
sure we put a sign at the door that says, "Do not bother me. I'm editing."
Yeah.
Um, but all that obviously symbolic. But and then I just try to concentrate as much as I can to be able to follow what we're doing. If it's a short film, there's got to be a script, right? There's got to be takes.
Yeah.
And if everything was shot properly, and sometimes it isn't, sometimes you just got to go with the flow and take a little more time to organize your footage, to organize your assets, and go from there. But when all that's done, you know, there's a different flow of things per each video that you work on, right? If it's a short film, you got to go through the takes. You got to go through what are called the dailies, or if it's just like a 1 day short film, making
Yeah.
sure everything is organized. If it's like a commercial,
Yeah.
different flow, right? Things will be a lot less chaotic. So you'll be able to find things a lot quicker and be able to get through an edit a lot sooner as well. So yeah, I think every type of video has its own way to be able to work with. But the structure and the flow is pretty similar. And that depends on how your workflow is from recording to saving, and also how your file structure is set.
Yeah. Oh, that's helpful. That's awesome. And I imagine, there are some similarities in other people's workflows, but there's also, preference. So everybody's got their different method, and depending on where you're working and with a team, I'm sure there's different things that you do, like file structure and naming and tools that you're using to ensure that y'all can work together. Um, what what are your go-to tools for post-production?
Yeah, for sure. There's a good amount of tools I like to use. I know there's always that conversation of your Final Cut editors, your Premiere editors, now your DaVinci editors.
Yeah.
And I started with Final Cut, loved it, but ever since they came out with Final 10, I kind of dropped it and
Yeah.
switched to Premiere, and kind of been using Adobe Premiere for a long time now. And that's my main editing software that I use is Adobe Premiere. And I like Adobe Premiere just because of the way it works with all the other applications that it has
Yeah.
that you have to use in this industry, like After Effects, Audition,
Mhm.
Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, etc. So I've been using Adobe Premiere for editing, obviously After Effects for any motion graphics.
Yeah.
But the other tools outside of that for post production that you might have not heard as much is I recently came across in the last few months for a tool called Descript. And what that is, it's actually a really sweet tool. I wish I would have had it during a lot of the shoots I've done in the past,
Yeah.
especially when there's a lot of talking. What in normal editing, you look at the footage and you edit it that way. What this does, it actually transcribes automatically everything that's said,
Wow.
and you edit it based on the words. So you're seeing the words and you're saying, okay, this paragraph was said great, but this one sucked. Let's highlight those words, delete them, and then automatically cuts the video based on the words that you're using, on the words that
Wow.
you're editing. So it's a really neat tool, a lot faster to use
Yeah.
when it comes to editing, especially things that have a lot of words in them, documentaries, talking head videos, and you can edit it based on the words and then figure out how the video will look later, right? So
Yeah.
that's one neat tool that I started to use. Other tools that deals in post production, Frame.io has been a very strong tool as well when
Yeah.
delivering to clients, when delivering to colleagues, so they can make their comments, and you know exactly where you're able to make the changes needed. Um, yeah, I mean, other than that, another tools that I love to use that may not be necessarily post production, but is pre-production in a way. It makes things a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
I love this tool called Celtex, where within that tool, you have your whole writing options that you can do, your scripts, your different type of scripts, but also there's a really powerful tool within that call that you do your budgeting. You're able to
Oh,
budget based on the personnel that you need, based on what else needs to go into the budget, so you're able to create a good strong budget off the cuff. And that's one of the tools I used a lot for a lot of the shoots we did um, previously at our old job, MX.
yeah.
So yeah, those are the tools that come to mind. I'm sure there's a lot more that I use, um, but yeah, that's what I got so
No.
far.
No, that's awesome and super insightful. I'm sure for me, as someone who dabbles in that kind of stuff, but is definitely not an expert, and then our listeners who may be wanting to get into this field. And speaking of that, let's say there was somebody who's just coming out of high school or maybe switching careers and they've decided their passion is video production in one form or the other. Do you have anything you would tell them to pursue or things that maybe you wish you knew about when you got started?
Yeah, there's definitely a few things. Um, I guess we could kind of just start out to the beginning. When someone goes into video, I don't think they go into the mind of saying, okay, I'm gonna go into video so I can work for a tech company or I can work for a big corporation and make their videos, right? They go into
Yeah,
video because of everything that we all love. And what is that? Filmmaking, movies, right?
yeah, music videos,
So
yeah, whatever.
music videos,
Yeah,
or very creative type of ad type of videos. So I think when you're starting out, you kind of gotta figure out and decide, okay, if I want to go into movies, for example, in films, I gotta make sure I go, I don't want to say balls deep. What's the other word? I want to go, what's a good term there, Ike?
right. That's a good question. Um,
uh Full on, both
yeah,
feet in the water type of thing. You want to go on full, put your full force behind what you're wanting to do. So if it's filmmaking, what I would suggest is like, you know um network with people who are making short films, especially here in Utah. You have the Utah Film Commission. There's
mm,
people posting jobs of production assistants or very, good startup type of jobs that some pay, some may not, but it's what the experience is, what's the value there,
yeah,
um, for you to be able to get going. As well as, if back when I started, going to school was a good route because that's where you learned a lot. I think
yeah,
it's changed a little bit today, right?
yeah.
So going to school for this maybe not be the same as it was back then. There's
Mhm.
probably other options where you can just kind of go to get the experience needed and kind of start that way. Um, so for going back to filmmaking, Utah Film Commission, network with people.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to network. I'm kind of an introvert, so it's harder for me to talk to people and make friends.
Yeah,
But you got to get over that hurdle and get to know people. Um, there's also great Facebook groups within each state, especially in Utah. There's a pretty strong Facebook group called Utah Filmmakers where people are posting all the stuff they're doing, where they need help, where they can pay, what position they need, or what roles they're looking for. And, uh, and if you're a student and you don't have a family and you don't have other big commitments, you can really put a lot of effort into those things to be able to just do that continually. And by doing that, you'll get the experience, you'll grow, and you'll be able to, hopefully, land some good roles in that field, specifically for making movies, for filmmaking.
yeah,
And then just to kind of give you a little difference here, for me right now, I'm married, I have 3 kids. uh it's a little different of a scenario, right, than like a student with no other commitments.
totally.
And for those people who may not be able to commit 15 hours a day, because making movies and being in productions, and it takes a lot of time. So
Yeah,
sometimes when I started, I was already married,
yeah,
and I remember getting hired to be a production assistant at some Disney movies that were being made here in Utah. And I would go and be there for literally 14 hours a day for like a week
yeah,
or two. getting paid really low. But it was tiring, man.
Yeah.
It was stressful at times, and
Yeah.
it was hard just because you're doing all these odd jobs, and at the same time you're not seeing your newly married wife. I was newly married there, so it was like I can just imagine doing something like that with kids. It'd be so hard. Um, so there's different routes I think for those type of people, but now that I'm married and have three kids, I still love to do that kind of stuff. I still love to
Yeah.
help um, people with their short films. I have a lot of ambitions myself to create my own stuff. I
Yeah.
just got to treat it a little differently. Now since I have a family and I have to pay my rent, pay my
Totally.
house, and you kind of understand that feeling a little bit. So a lot of
Yeah.
my extra time is after work hours. That's where my passion projects come in, and that's where I can dive into. But
Yeah.
a lot of that can get disturbed by a crying kid in the back. Oh, okay, I got to take a break here for a few
Totally.
hours, put him to bed or not. But kind of going along with that, there's also other things I would recommend. So if there's a lot of video needs right now in companies, right, in
Yeah.
agencies in general. So if another route you could take is by getting by being able to get hired on to a company like a tech company, like I've done in the past, and
Yeah.
being able to work with them and grow their team and grow yourself that way.
Sure.
And at the same time, there's also agencies you can work with. And nowadays, you can even as you get the experience, as you get good, as you get the content to show that what you've done is something you can build yourself and create your own company, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely many routes, and I can go a lot more detail into them if you want me to, but that's
Yeah.
kind of just the overview.
No, that's awesome. And I think you answered a good question for those out there who are thinking, you went to school and you probably got into this originally with the idea that you wanted to make movies or be part of those bigger productions. But as a family man, you start to put the pieces together like, wow, do I really, that's a high cost to pay to be in that industry, and I want to, support this family, and the way those productions go a lot of times is, you're laid off at the end of production, and you hope to get picked up on the next one. It's not real stable. Like, you're going to make this kind of money, and that was a simpler, or excuse me, similar experience for me wanting to get into animation. I remember, you know, reading up about Disney animators who would have to be committed to the hospital for a month after a production finished because they just, were working for months straight, sleeping under their desk, and just to kind of meet that deadline because so much
Yeah.
is riding on that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because when you say that, I think about like what a crappy system is set up to be able to go to, lose your health to be able to go through that just so you could work on that, right?
Yeah,
I wish there was a better system. And I'll be honest right now, if I was like single right now and
yeah,
not married and I was young and I just had this energy to go, man, I packed my bags and I moved to the places where things are being made, like
yeah,
LA, Atlanta,
yeah,
Toronto, and then just dive
yeah,
into those kind of things, right? But you can't do that once you have, and maybe I could phrase it a bit better ways. Like I'm not saying leave your wife, leave your
yeah.
kids,
No, totally
and
not.
go do
Yeah,
that. No, it's like figure out your commitments. But if you're in that position, maybe a lot of the opportunities come if you just move to those places. And I did try to convince my wife at one point to move to LA with me
yeah.
when I was already married, and yeah, man, that was like nope, no way.
Didn't happen. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah, and that's good advice. For those who are younger and don't have those commitments, be honest with yourself. What do you really want to do in this creative field? And that's what I've heard from lots of people in different areas. Is, just go to where those things are being made. Whether you're a filmmaker and want to go to LA or Toronto or Atlanta, like you mentioned, or you're an entrepreneur that wants to rub shoulders with other entrepreneurs. You want to go to the Bay Area, or there's other places, Austin, the Silicon Slopes where we're at. But yeah,
I don't want to. I also want to give you the idea that it's still possible to do stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go to those places. Does that make sense? I mean, there's still a lot of good creatives. It's definitely going to be a harder uphill battle.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you an example, our friend Luke, Luke and I,
Yeah.
he's in this uphill battle with me because he creates films and he's created feature films,
Yeah.
but he shot only on weekend. I mean, production, when you go to make a film, you do it for 30 days straight, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a job and you're putting your own money into it, you can't do that, right?
Right.
So what he's done is, and something I admire, is that he's done it on the weekends,
Yeah.
done it in the evenings, and got the right people with the right energy to be able to commit them to do it at the times you can really only do it. And after a few weeks, you have everything. And then after a few months, because you're editing yourself, you have your feature film.
Yeah.
And he's been able to be a little bit successful with that, which is really cool. And that's something I think that's another approach. It's harder, but
Yeah.
it's still doable.
That's what it comes down to. If you want to increase your chances and maybe get there quicker, you move to that place and you're not tied down with other responsibilities. But you're right. There for sure other ways to do it, and you and I are both trying to do that slowly but surely. Build our own things on the side. One of these days we'll have some Netflix series that we'll produce.
I think we've been talking about, man, to doing like an animation short thing. I got some ideas. I know it's just we gotta get down and just do it. So
no, we'll make it happen for sure. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Dan. Thanks again so much for being on the program. I'm confident that there will be people that want to learn more and maybe reach out to you at some point after listening to this. Do you have a social network that you're most active on, or some way to contact you if someone wanted to pick your brain more?
yeah, for sure. So I have my Instagram account. It's just Airbus Films. Just look me up, or you can even just go to airbusfilms.com and get my contact information there. And yeah, man, I love to connect and then work with anybody. I think in the past, you and I had conversations to being able to bring people together one way to the other.
Yeah.
There's through like a little Zoom call or just kind of like talk and figure out what we're all doing and just have a conversation. Just show, hey, this is what I'm doing. Maybe you can help me, or what do you think? Or just throwing off ideas. That's something maybe we can pursue too. But yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, hit me up in any of those website or Instagram.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks again, Dan, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Well, what did I tell you? Another good one in the books, and this time we have commenting ready for you. I know you're just itching to get your comments out there and share what it is you love about this episode and the creative process in general, whether it be video or animation or design, you name it, music. We've got it for you. Head on over to CRE8 Yeah, that's our store, but it also has the podcast with commenting below. So yeah, you're gonna have to check that out. CRE8 You may be saying, what about this .com that I was hearing about? Weren't you supposed to secure CRE8 You're right, I was, and I had purchased it. It was mine. I could feel it. The .com gooiness dripping through my fingers. It was beautiful. But alas, it wasn't meant to be. I dropped some serious coin on it and waited the 2 weeks that GoDaddy said it would take for them to transfer it from the original owner. And guess what? that dude didn't own it anymore or whatever. It was some kind of fraudulent deal. So they basically told me, we don't know who owns it. Good luck. And refunded the money, and here we are, a .NET type of program. But that's okay. Like we talked about in previous episodes, there are some really good companies out there that rock the .NET. Case in point, Maxon.net, makers of Cinema 4D, now ZBrush as well. They own Red Giant and others. So yeah, I've got no problem being associated with that kind of outfit. But anyways, thank you once again for joining, and until next time, create or die.